Oh my goodness, that was embarrassing. I forgot to hit the share screen audio. All right. Well, you guys get the advertisement. I played every wargaming. I'm super proud of it. All right. So what we're gonna do? I haven't even looked at the charts. That's an article I'm writing. Starting with the daily. Holy cow, we are moving and grooving. All right. So starting with candle science. Let me get this together correctly. All right, we're gonna go to the candle science, starting on the daily. We can see we're stuck inside of this NFP range, right? We're gonna use Tuesday and Wednesday to figure out what the highest probable movement is for today. So we're gonna move these all over so we can do it from scratch. Right, we see that we're above previous month 50% and we're stuck inside of the NFP Friday's range. We're stuck in this range that we've been in for over a quarter now. All right, so let's take Tuesday and Wednesday and figure out what the highest probability. Just by eye, we know that yesterday closed below here, so this is the highest probability unless we touch open, and which we just did. All right, and we breached the previous day mid, which we have done overnight. So now we're going to go see what that looks like, right? So this is bear, right? We closed below the low, and this is the importance of being able to read live price and align it with statistics and knowing where your invalidations for the probabilities are going to be, right? So you can see there's a 65% probability of taking out the low, right, as it lies, right? Unless the opening was touched and the previous day mid was touched, right? And then we can see that low went from 65 to 45, right? Before the previous day high had a 24%. So number one, Tuesday and Wednesday, out of 3,778 days, this signature has only happened 460. So actually a really good amount for it. And then because we breached previous day mid and the opening price, we know that went down to 100. That's only happened 186 times, right? So now we see that the probability shift to the high versus the low, right? Make sure we touch the opening. We haven't touched it yet, right? The opening price for this is 25,900.75. So we're going to come over here, make sure the coordinates are exact because we don't have time for being off. 25,900.75. And now we know that we're right here, right now, touching it. So now we know that the probabilities have shifted from this low to this high, right? So now we're expecting like the high to get touched, right? You can see 59%. So now we're going to come put our targets on, right? Out of that 186 times this has happened, these are the 30th percentile reversal zone. This is the 50th percentile zone reversal, and this is 75, right? So these little dots represent all the 186 times this if-then statement has happened. We know that 30% of the time we reversed off a previous day high at 0.29. So we're going to bring our little price range tool, put it on previous day high, bring it up to 0.29, which is like right there. Good enough for government work. Then we're going to draw the top of our green box right there. We're going to do the 50th percentile, right? Which we can see 50% of that 186 has reversed by 0.5%, 0.51. Now we're going to draw this out, 0.51, which is right here. Put a red box right there, and let's do our 50th percentile, or the 70th percentile now, which is at 0.87. And what we're going to be doing is lining up high day data with this 0.87 when we get over to the daily side. Right, so we know that looking at candle science again, where do we plan on closing? Is it a high possibility that we close outside of the previous high? We can see right now there's only a 35% probability that we close above previous day high today. All right, so looking at it now, we can, let me turn this off. So this is the highest probability area that we can go right here at the bottom of the green is. So we know that, right, that's the target, but we like to suck back into the range and close within the previous day's body. All right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to go on and go to the intraday. I was writing an article. All right, let me put this on the 5-minute. Come over here. Right, we know that we are long true, and we're breaking out to the long side. We're about to touch previous day high right now. So we're going to go over to the daily profile. Remember, candle science is for open, high, low, close. We know that candle science is for open, high, low, close probabilities, and we know daily profile is for Asia, London, and New York 1 probabilities. So let's go over there. Let's go to our journaling, click on daily profile, right, and type in what has happened overnight to give us probabilities. All right, we're not operating in London, so we need to change this to New York. Operating on the NASDAQ. And so now we know that we went, let's reset. We know we're going to start with 4,500 days. We're going to go long, true, and we broke out to the long side of the 730 to 830 box. All right, so there's only two possible scenarios that we can do between now and 11:30. Right, we can keep going up until 11:30, right, and not breach the 730 to 11:30 low, or we can go up, which if we don't touch this low, that would be considered true, or we can go up to come down, which is known as false, and we breach that low. Right, so data shows us that there's a 63% probability that we go false, meaning we go up to come down. And there's a 36, which is increase, that we say true, right? We can see that the highest probability for New York 1, the structure-wise, right, is that we go up to come down. So we should start expecting that reversal to happen between 9:20 and 9:40, right? And then we spend the rest of the morning session going down and possibly sucking into range. Right? So if that's the case, where can we expect, just as it is right now, we see that this signature, 1800 was the low of the day, highest probable low of the day for a long false. It's still, Asia had the highest probability of making the low of the day, and even for a long true, it's the highest probability for the low of the day. Right? And so now, right, for a long false, we can expect the high of the day to get put in between 9:30 and 9:45. If we keep pumping and can't do the 4-step reversal, we can expect the high of the day to happen after 10, but the highest probability high of the day will be in the power hour, right? So coming back over here, right, if we know that the highest probability is to go up to come down, right, where are we going to target, right? Especially if we know that the low of the day is high probability in already. We got London OU and P12 mid right there. We've got settlement gap fill. We have Asia OU and midnight and Globex all right here that we can put probabilities on. So we have 3 areas of target that we can pay attention to, right? London OU and P12 mid, settlement, Globex open, Asia OU and midnight, right? All right here. We know that is this to go up to come back down is the highest probability, but we can also go up. If we continue going up and we can't do the signature by 10:15, then we know that more than likely we're going with the less probability and we're going to keep climbing up. All right, so let's go look at these probabilities for this. Starting with London OU. We can see that London OU only has, with a false, it has an 85% probability of getting hit, and majority of the time it gets hit between 9:30 and 9:45. So we can just put a little note right here at London OU, 85%. 9:30 to 9:45. Right? Now we're going to go look at the P12 mid and see what that probability is. We can see that has an 82% probability of being retraced, and it has the mode and median at 9:30. You can go all the way to 11 o'clock. So 82. And we know that from a time standpoint, the most likely time that will get retraced to will be 9:30 to 11 o'clock. All right, now we're going to go to settlement. We can see that settlement has a low probability of getting hit. It's got a 48% probability, and that gets hit between 9:30 and 9:45. So you get the volatility of the market open should shift us down if it's going to go with the higher probability, right? We can also look at the 25, 50, 75, and 100% levels on a Thursday, and you can see that those 25 has an 87, 50% of the gap fill has a 71, 75 of the gap fill has a 65, and 100% has a 62. So there's nothing really convincing. We need to mark that this is low probability for settlement. Right, so now we're going to use Globex Open, Asia OU, and Midnight Open to see what their probabilities are. So we can see Globex Open, just being the 1800, doesn't have a high probability. It's 48%, but not most of the time it gets hit between 9:30 and 9:45. All right, Midnight Open has got a 69, so that's above average, and usually it has a mode at 8 o'clock to 8:15, but today it has a 9:30 to 9:45, so this is a higher probability movement for that midnight. 79, or no, 69. All right, moving on. Now we're going to go look at our Asia OU. Right? So we can see that only has a 65%. The majority of the time it gets hit between 3 and 4. But there is data that can confirm that it can get hit between 10 and 10:15 for that 65. We know midnight has a 69. We know that this Asia OU has a 65 between 09:30 and 10:15. Right? So we know that, after we cover the queen and the cost, cover the queen, right? We know there's a high likelihood that this will get hit. And we know that the highest probable structure is to go up to come down between 9:30 and 11:30. Right? So we need to look for the 4-step reversal, which I teach you in the boot camp, right? If we can't do that 4-step reversal, all these probabilities drop off the face of the earth, and our job is not to even care about them, right? Because it's going with option 2, which is to go up between 7:30 and 11:30, and not to breach the 7:30 to 8:30 low, right? All right, so now let's do high day, low day for false to see if we're in a reversal area for that. Right, so we know that high of the day for New York is the highest probability between 9:30 and 10:15 for false, right? Between 1 and 1.1% off of Globex Open. Let's put that in our thing for long false, high of day. Mode to median is from 1 to 1.1 between 9:30 and 10:30, right? And we can see we've overextended that. So that's either we've overextended that level. So we're in this area now, which is anomaly land, right? So we're either going to reverse, or this is telling us a clue that it's not going to do the false. Momentum is so strong that we're not going to do the high probability, and we're going to have to wait for 1.1 to 1.5 for the high of the day, right? So the biggest key to the day in trading is knowing. Give me 1 second. Is knowing that we are in a high probability reversal area, but setting the conditions for our success is going to be to look for momentum and live price to tell us it's okay to start taking shorts, right? Because if you can't do that, you will go bust going long, right? So this represents the 9 o'clock hour, and from 9:30 to 10:15, we'll pay attention to this mid. Can we get below it? We will also pay attention. This will represent the 9:30 candle on the 1 minute chart, high to low. So can we get below 9:30 on the 1 minute? Can we go below 9 o'clock's 50%? Can 10 o'clock get below 9 o'clock? And can we make an instat high in quarter 1 of 10 o'clock? If we can do all 4 of those things, that's enough Doesn't mean we don't trade while these 4 steps are happening. We just position size properly for a reversal and not, like we don't put 4 positions on. We just do a fourth of regular position. But once we get those 4 steps, we've got the keys to the city and we know where momentum for the RTH is going, right? So yeah, like my job is to look for this. If 930 gives me buys, I'll take cash flow buys to the long side because we've already overspent our distros, right? And I'll take increased position size and extended targets to the short side of the house. But that's my game plan today. Yeah, should be a fun day. Don't fight the momentum, even though the higher probability movement is to the downside. Set the conditions for your success, because you could end up getting stopped out a lot trying to take shorts when the live price is telling you it doesn't want a short. It doesn't care about 85% probabilities. It cares about the 15% of that. It doesn't care about this 82. It cares about the 18% probability. All right. So with that being said,